a meeting of the Exeter Zoning Board of Adjustment. I'll introduce myself and the rest of the board. I'm Joanne Petito. To my left is Bob Pryor, Laura Davies, Chris Merrill, Rick Theobar, and Martha Pennell. We do have a lot of business tonight, so I just want to state at the outset that our practice is not to begin new business after 9 p.m. So,
10 or 10.
oh, it's at 10? Yeah. I stand corrected,
I wish
10
it was
p.m.
9.
Yeah, 10 p.m.
I move.
Excuse me, yeah, to change it to 9. So if we haven't heard your matter or the matter that you're here for by 10 o'clock, if it hasn't been called, we won't be calling that case. It'll be put over to another meeting, probably the next meeting. But if we're in the middle of doing something at 10, we will continue it. So I just want to let everyone know that. And we have 6 of us here tonight. The two people on the ends are alternates. So we should get clear who's voting on what, at least for the first application. If you can take a look at is the first application one that anyone is recusing themselves from? The first one meaning the second one on the agenda, the application of Dawson's PPC
Nope.
for the enclosed porch on Spruce Street.
Okay.
Okay, so can we have both alternates voting, or should we just have one?
I will step down and let
We
mine.
need to have just
5.
5.
It's just like 5.
Okay, so we can address that, I guess, when it comes time to vote on that application.
What?
Both can participate in the questioning, but only
Only
one
one
should
should vote.
vote. And that should be identified in advance.
Okay, do either of you have a preference as to who wants to vote on the second matter on the agenda, which is the enclosed porch on Spruce Street?
It's all right.
Is it Spruce? Is that,
Why don't I vote on that?
okay.
You can vote on the
On the
next
other,
one, since I'm
okay.
not gonna do that.
All right, that's good.
Which one am I voting on?
The last one,
Last one.
The first one,
No, you're doing the first
you're
one.
doing the first one.
we are gonna do the radio?
No, we'll get there.
All right.
Okay, so,
So before we, at the outset,
Speak of the devil.
They locked me out,
oh, hi, Kevin.
all of us.
well,
Now we're overrepresented.
Okay, all right, so now 1, 2, 3, 4,
around
5
when I had a chance.
regular members will vote unless someone refuses.
On this one,
Okay.
Welcome.
Hello.
Okay, and this is Kevin Baum. He's another member who just arrived. But actually, before we get to the matters that we're voting on, I'd like to read into the record a letter that we just received, and this concerns the first item on the agenda, a request for rehearing on the application of VWI Towers for a special exception, for 2 special exceptions. And I'll just read the letter. Dear members of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Varsity Wireless respectfully requests permission to withdraw without prejudice its application for the above referenced relief for a wireless communications facility at the property. The application is scheduled to be heard on October 15th, 2019. In light of this request, Varsity Wireless requests that the withdrawal without prejudice be granted without the need for its representatives to attend the October 15th hearing. Please contact me if a representative is required to attend. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. Signed, Brian Grossman. So the first item on the agenda, the cell tower matter, the applicant is requesting to withdraw that. They are requesting to withdraw without prejudice. Do we need any discussion regarding that? Or, okay. Okay, so the application is withdrawn.
So if they want to come back, they have to start fresh.
Have to start scratch.
Yes, but it is withdrawn without prejudice.
So if any members of the public are here for the wireless tower, you're free to go.
Yeah, it won't be addressed tonight. Okay. All right, so we'll proceed to the second matter on the agenda, which is the application of Dawson's PPC, Inc. on behalf of Jonathan and Alyssa Frank for a variance from Article 5, Section 5.3.1A2 to permit the proposed construction of a 12 by 16 enclosed porch within the same footprint of an existing deck which encroaches upon the minimum side yard setback. The subject property is located at 23 Spruce Street in the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District, tax map parcel 63-81 and this is case number 19-13. So on this application, the 5 permanent members of the board will be voting,
Sounds good.
okay? Would the applicant like to present their application?
Good
Hi.
evening, members of the board. My name is Al Dawson, and I've got with me Greg Dawson. We're from Dawson's PPC. And I also have the homeowner, Mr. Jonathan Frank, from 23 Spruce Street. Mr. Frank hired us to construct a 12 by 16-foot deck to replace the existing deck, which is in disrepair. As you see in your packets, we enclosed a couple pictures to show what the current condition of the deck is. They wanted to replace it with an enclosed porch, and in the process of acquiring a building permit, the building inspector determined that a portion of the 12-foot side encroached upon the 10-foot side setback at a maximum of 1.5 feet. No survey was done to determine exactly how much of the 12 feet is within the 10-foot setback, but if you take half of that and say 6 feet, the average encroachment runs from, say, 6 inches to a maximum of 18 inches at the final point. The Franks have been in town for 10 years. They were unaware of the encroachment until the building permit was sought. They've lived here 10 years, they have 3 young children, and they plan to stay in Exeter for foreseeable future.
Okay, does anyone have any questions on what's been presented so far?
So the porch is going to be on piers, or like the deck was, or what is the plan for the foundation?
It'll be on sonotubes.
Okay. Okay.
We can't do sonotubes, because it's attached to the house, there'll have to be a 4-foot frost wall.
Can't do sonotubes with the 50?
Not if it's attached to the house and part of the living space. If it were a screen porch or something like that, the building code will require at least a minimum 4-foot foundation.
It was my understanding it was gonna be a screen porch, is that not correct?
Oh, it is?
It's a screen porch.
Screen porch.
Okay.
I thought it was gonna be living space, but
We'll let you guys
Well, that's
argue, we'll let you guys argue about that one.
No, whatever,
After-
whatever the requirements are.
Yeah, right. But you're not expanding the footprint.
No,
Okay,
That
that's
was
the key.
my question was regarding whether or not it was intended to be living space or could be converted to living space in the future.
no,
And that's not the case.
correct.
Okay, that's,
And this is the rear porch?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It actually looks like part of the house encroaches probably in the setback as well. Is that possible? Not that we would do anything about it, it doesn't, you don't think so? Okay, it's just part of the porch,
Okay.
okay.
I have a couple questions. One, the first is for Doug, which is, do we know whether this is pre-existing non-conforming, but do we know whether it was permitted? Did it pre-exist zoning, or has it just been there for a while?
we did some research. I couldn't find any evidence of a permit that was issued years ago. I mean, the deck's been there for a long time, so.
Okay,
No, I didn't find any evidence of a permit, so.
not hugely surprising. And then I wasn't entirely sure, so you said it's the side setback, but I'm just looking at the tax map, and it wasn't clear to me where the deck was relative to the house.
The tax map does not make it clear where it
Yeah.
is. As you look and you see the jet out on if you're looking at the house, we're talking about the right side,
It's the right side facing the house?
correct? Yeah.
Okay,
But you see that jut out, the deck is behind the house, which doesn't show on that on that picture.
So it's the right rear corner then?
Correct.
Which then goes into the.
Correct.
That side setback closest to 21 Spruce? Okay.
So just to confirm on the exhibit you provided, you're talking about back here somewhere? Or the?
Behind that,
Oh, back here.
yes, behind there. Yeah.
Okay.
It is not shown on.
It's not shown on
I
the
see.
tax
It's not
map.
shown.
Is that correct?
And
Okay.
and part of the corner of it, it gets into the setback.
Oh, okay,
Here.
so the location
Setback would
isn't
be
shown
here, And
on,
the deck is,
at all on this.
so the deck
No.
is back here.
that what we're saying?
Setback
That's
is probably
correct.
here somewhere.
Maybe that's why I
So
couldn't
it-
find it.
It cuts through it like
That's
that.
through, okay.
Yeah, we got it. We're there.
All right.
We're there.
And I was also wondering just how the height of the covered porch, how that relates to the existing height of the home.
The roof line will match up with an existing dormer on the back side of the house.
Would you mind just giving your name for the record?
Yep, my name is Greg Dawson, and I'm a carpenter with Dawson's PPC.
Okay,
So we won't go above the ridge line of the main house, but we'll line up with a dormer on
So-
the back side
okay, so is it gonna be lower than the ridge line?
of the
Or
main
the
house,
same
yes.
height? Okay,
Okay, but it'll meet the dormer ridge line on the back of the house.
okay. Is that shown? And I'm just trying to get
No,
a
it's
sense.
not.
Oh, no, there's some photos.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So there's a dormer that comes out to the rear, which is what's shown on the tax map is coming out.
Correct.
And it will line up with that height.
Correct, on the right side there.
It's hard to see, but it's
Yeah,
there.
it's-
There's a dormer off to the right there.
Yeah, it's tough to see in that picture, but we won't go above the ridge line of the main house.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Anything else? Good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this application? Okay, we'll close public session and begin deliberations then. Any discussion? Seems straightforward.
It seems very straightforward.
I'm fine with,
Okay,
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
agree.
yeah,
okay.
good,
We should probably go through the variance criteria as a matter of course.
okay.
If someone would like to do that, I apologize, I don't have my list with me from somebody.
Well, you're the chair. You're not supposed to do it anyway.
Oh, okay, there we go.
You're off the
Right.
hook. You're off the hook on that.
Okay,
I can do it if you want.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
so the variance, requirement number one is variance is not contrary to the public interest, and that is often considered with number two, the spirit of the ordinance is observed. Does it, I mean, this is an existing footprint. The only change is to add a roof and some screening. I don't see any problem with
Yeah,
any of this.
And
Okay.
I would also, the reasons are stated, some reasons are stated in the application that look
Okay.
sufficient to meet those criteria.
Okay, and number three, substantial justice is done where the benefit to the applicant is, should not be outweighed by harm to the general public. I don't really see any harm to the general public with this, and it does benefit the applicant, so, I think we're clear there. The values of surrounding properties are not diminished. I don't see this as a issue that could damage property values in any way.
It's actually an improvement,
Yeah.
it's stated in the
Improvement
application.
over substandard deck.
Yeah,
And increases the privacy of the homeowner
Yeah.
and thereby the neighbors as well, so. And then, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. And, I mean, I don't think we need to read the whole definition of hardship, but, I don't,
I think
Well,
it
it's
would.
a-
I think little enforcement would create a
Yeah.
hardship for the
Yeah.
homeowner. And
it's already in this spot and it's
Right.
in disrepair, so it needs to be replaced, and
Right.
denying that would
Yeah, I-
deny the owner's use of the porch.
Yeah, I'd also note it's a somewhat irregular shaped lot, which sort of forces the building to be at an angle, which is, I think, the main reason why it's in the setback at all.
Right,
It's
and there-
the, you know, everything else is pretty much out of the setback. It's the angle of the building to put anything on in that corner, puts the porch into the setback. And I don't know what the dimensions are, but it's got to be a small amount of the porch that's
I think it's
even in
12
the
by
setback.
16 or something, but they're
Yeah.
trying to maintain the existing footprint, which is appreciated, and that does cause the hardship of going into the setback slightly, so. So I think it meets all the criteria. I would make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
Seconded?
Any other discussion or questions on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So the motion passes and your application is granted. So
Thank you, members.
you're all set. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks. And here we go.
Okay, so our second matter is the application of Joseph Falzone for a variance from Article 4.3, Section 2, Density and Dimensional Regulations to permit the proposed subdivision of an existing 4.92 acre parcel on Brentwood Road, tax map parcel 63-93, into 5 single-family residential lots, with 4 of the lots having less than the required minimum lot width. The subject property is located in the R2 Single Family Residential Zoning District, and this is case number 19-14. Now, again, I don't think we have any members who are not voting on, regular members who are not voting on this, is that correct?
Yep.
And do we have one of the alternates who's not voting but recusing?
Yep.
Is that you, Chris? Okay. So you won't be participating in discussion or voting, correct? Right, okay. Okay, would the applicant like to present the application?
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Krebs, representing Harbor Street Limited Partnership. With me tonight are Joe Falzone, the owner of Harbor Street Limited Partnership, and our attorney, Mark Johnson, sitting to his left. Do you mind if I take this microphone and walk over to the board?
That's fine, just, yeah, if you do leave the podium, just take the mic with you.
I just wanted to give the board a brief history of how we got here and why we're here. This is as you said, a 4.9 acre parcel that's bounded by Brentwood Road on one side and Spruce Street on the other. This was a project that we had taken to the Exeter Planning Board for subdivision approval. There would be a through road connecting Brentwood and Spruce and 10 lots fronting on that road. This met all the lot size requirements, but there were some other issues that we had to resolve, right-of-way widths, that sort of thing. We've overcome those issues, but there was overwhelming sentiment in opposition to this plan from the abutters for a variety of reasons. Many of the people just thought it was too dense, didn't want it in their backyard, and the through road was a real problem for a lot of the abutters. So we went back to the drawing board, and what we're proposing now is 5 lots that will all have their own frontage. Lots 2 and 3 will have approximately 20 feet of frontage on Brentwood Road with a shared driveway. Lot 1 will have 100 feet of frontage on Brentwood Road, and I'm not sure where the driveway will be. We're showing it off of Spruce Street. If someone that purchases this lot decides they wanted it to go through Brentwood Road and through the wetland, that would be an option for them. And then the other 2 lots would have frontage on Spruce Street. So in terms of the variance we're seeking tonight is for less than the requisite 100 feet of road frontage. But what this plan does is it eliminates the need for wetland impacts. It eliminates the need for a through road that would cause traffic problems between Spruce and Brentwood. There'd be no long-term maintenance of any public infrastructure by the town because everything would be private with the 2 shared driveways. And we're also able to solve a couple of issues with, not solve, but help some of the abutters with some excess land that we have by transferring it to them to make their lots larger. And those two pieces that we have agreed to transfer are shown in orange on the lot. So this property has been owned by the Ellison family for generations, and it's always been used for agricultural purposes. So I think most of you probably know where it is, but it's one of the last small parcels in town. And to get to the point we're at now, we have spent a fair amount of time working with the planning staff and Doug to try to find a plan that the planning department and Doug could support, and I think they both believe that this would be a good project for the town. So I'd like to turn it over to Mark so he could deal could address the legal issues.
Good evening, Mark Johnson, from Johnson & Bornstein. My office is located in Andover, Mass. I'm happy to represent Joe Falzoni tonight. The hardest part, I think, was getting into the building, as the front door was locked for a while, but I felt better. I wasn't the only one that was locked out. The application sets forth in detail why we believe we meet the requirements for a variance. As John went over a number of the issues that I think support the variance. First, the lot is very irregularly shaped. It's a strange configuration. A number of lots were conveyed out before this one was actually in the configuration that it has. It was created in 1947. The access point could be a public way. It could be a public road if we did a conventional subdivision. What we're proposing is everything being private. There will be no public ownership of roads. The driveways will be maintained by the lot owners. Lot 2 and 3, we're looking for a variance to allow a 20 feet of frontage, where 100 feet of frontage would be required in the zoning district. And lots 4 and 5, we're looking to allow 22 feet of frontage, again, where 100 feet would be required. The plan that's before you shows lot 1 having sufficient frontage. I don't believe that granting the variance would be contrary to the public interest. It allows a 5-lot subdivision where we could have a greater number of lots if we want a conventional. And it preserves greater open space, creates less impervious area. This is an area of town that is primarily single-family homes. The addition of the 5 homes, I think, is keeping within the character of the area. We've given you an aerial photograph. We have a blow-up of it over here, so you can get some idea as to how the size of the lots that we're proposing fit into the neighborhood. I think they're much larger than a lot of the surrounding lots. The proposal doesn't conflict with the spirit of the ordinance. Again, it eliminates the need for a through road, and a through road would have a greater impact on the neighborhood, increasing the number of lots within the subdivision, and would also increase the town's maintenance obligations. Substantial justice, I believe, is done. This relief is not, as I understand it, this relief is not without precedent in the R2 zone. The application references 2 other properties that I believe this board has granted similar relief. The literal enforcement of the bylaw would not result in would result in unnecessary hardship. Again, it's a 4.92 acre lot, irregularly shaped. It's significantly deeper, and there's limited frontage, which is actually broken among certain access points. If there's a question that the board has, I'm happy to answer it.
I have one question. The alternative plan to have a road going through it, would that require a variance also? Or is that something that you could do without any special relief?
Yep.
It would not need a variance. It would
Okay.
need a waiver for the right-of-way width here and here. And we've overcome that, and I didn't bring the plan because we don't want to pursue it, but we have a
Right.
plan showing the road coming through here and going through a portion of the white property here.
Okay.
that we have under contract as well, but we don't want to
It
pursue
wouldn't,
that option.
okay, but it wouldn't
It
require
would
this
not
kind
require-
of relief
It would
from the
not
zoning
require a
board?
variance, no.
Okay.
Was that plan approved by the planning board? That plan?
This plan didn't get very far with the planning board. We went in for a preliminary discussion with them. The planning board, basically, we asked them for their feedback. This is the exact plan I brought in. And one of the things I was seeking input from the board on was whether or not they would support the granting of a waiver for a right-of-way that was narrower than 50 feet, which is what your regulations require. They seemed disinclined to grant that waiver, which is why I said, and I don't have it here, but we have another design showing the road come through here and then going through this part here. So this was never approved by the planning board. We went to the board, I think, on 2 separate occasions in, I think, July and August, or August and September. So, and we don't want to pursue this.
Follow up on that, though, has the board, so you went for design review with this plan?
With this plan,
Have you done design review with a plan that you're presenting tonight, or similar to what you're presenting tonight?
I showed them this plan at the last meeting, and I think there was a collective sigh of relief from the
Okay.
board members and the abutters. So, no need for design review for this because it's straightforward. So there's really no issues, beyond the variance.
But it has been, but they've seen it.
They
as an
saw it,
alternative.
yes, absolutely, yes, yep.
And the yellow is wetland?
This is, this is mapped wetland, although we contend, there's 2 pieces, there's a sliver here, and then there's a piece here. We contend, and we have proof that this was man-made. Nevertheless, we don't want to argue with, actually, I think the town is on board with our assessment that this was man-made. This is so small that there's no setback, that they've agreed that we can just fill that in. This, we don't want to touch. At least, we don't intend to touch this wetland. If we sold this lot to somebody and they decided they really wanted to have a driveway off of Brentwood Road, they could try to get a dredge and fill permit to go through here. But it's our intent to access the lot off of Spruce Street and not, with no wetland impact.
Okay.
You say they have allowed you to fill that little piece of wetland? Who is
Well,
they?
I think the town acknowledges that there's a provision in the ordinance that says if it was a man-made wetland, there's no setback requirement, it can be filled. And I think everybody, it was an agricultural drainage ditch. But it's not material to this application.
Can you explain the nature of the wetland as it exists? You say it's man-made. What is it? Is it low? Is it damp? What is it?
This is an actual.
No, not the yellow one, please.
It's low. It's low. There's a drainage, a culvert that went under Brentwood Road that was clogged for many years. I think basically it dammed the water up here and it's never been fixed. But we've got an affidavit from Ken Ellison saying it was never wet when it was used for agricultural purposes. But again, we don't care anymore because we don't have any intention to touch this. We just want to leave it the way it is.
Yeah, I think the concern on this end is just, there's full frontage there. I know this is your plan. The question is just what happens when you sell it to an end user.
I don't know if it's I don't care if you or the planning board puts a condition of the approval on saying that the access has to be off of Spruce Street. If that's a concern of yours, I don't think we care.
Okay.
That's the logical place anyway. I don't know why anybody would want to come through here.
Sure.
So that's fine.
Okay.
Actually, I would rather have it, if that's a concern of the board, I'd rather have it say not to go through here, because it could also actually come through here. But I think this is the more logical. So I think it could either connect to this or off of Spruce, but not through here.
That's helpful. I mean, again,
You know what I mean?
I think the concern is that would be, if the reason for the variance is is to avoid this, and in large part it is.
I understand.
I think that's helpful, and I understand, I think it's ultimately, in my mind, it's the planning board's purview
But
where
if you-
where
if
the
you-
driveways go.
But if you guys, if it's important to you and it weighs into your consideration for granting a variance, it's fine with us to say that the access shall not be through the wetland on that, on this portion of the lot.
Okay.
How about the
That's
opposite?
helpful.
How about the opposite? If the access was through there, would you require a variance?
No.
Through the wetland?
Lot one,
Just look at
as it stands,
105 foot of frontage right there.
this one here? Lot one does not need a variance.
No, taking apart lot one, the entire thing.
Oh, yeah, they still,
If you have 105 foot of frontage on Brentwood Road up above the wetland,
Yeah,
if the entrance to all five was there as opposed to being so close to I'm thinking about the abutters, who are now gonna have a road next to them or a driveway next to them, multiple cars, multiple houses. If the entrance was up there at 105 to all five, you wouldn't require a variance, would you? If there was no wetland,
it would have to be a town road.
it would have to be a town road.
Because
to
there
create
still
the
wouldn't
frontage.
be, there wouldn't be frontage, Bob. So it would still, you could put one lot in without a
Yeah.
variance.
Yeah, it'd have to be a town standard road, which the town isn't really interested in. I think the town's, the planning department's position is, if we can avoid building a town road for 5 lots, it's a benefit to the town.
would it
And
have
I
to
believe
be,
the abutters, I can't speak, I believe.
No, we'll get there, but
Okay.
I'm thinking ahead to, I mean, those are two tight entrances.
Well, this is 40 feet and this is 42. I mean, a town standard road is 50 feet and you could have 100 cars a day through here. So it's 10 feet narrower, but there's 2 homes here.
if you did put a road through there, would it have to be a through road? In other words, would it have to go
Could it
all
be
the
a
way?
cul, could it be, couldn't be a
Spruce?
cul-de-sac?
It can't be a cul-de-sac because the subdivision regulations don't allow for T or P cul-de-sacs. Either they have to be a full circle cul-de-sac, and basically a cul-de-sac would gobble up all the land.
Okay.
That was something we've exhausted all those options.
Because the length isn't an issue.
Oh, God, well, no, a connecting road would be ideal, but there's, a lot of the abutters were extremely concerned about through traffic through the site, and this prevents that.
We just have to understand, so when we try to
No,
consider
yeah.
hardship and so forth.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
Not
Are
at
you,
this time.
are you done with the presentation for the application? Or-
Is there any,
Yeah.
If you have any more questions, we're happy to respond. But we're done with the formal presentation.
Thank you.
okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak regarding this application? If so, please come to the microphone. No one? Oh. And please state your name.
Hi,
for the
my name
record.
is Dan Hummel, and I wasn't going to say anything tonight. Dan Hummel,
Okay,
Where do you live, Dan?
I'll show you.
Okay, thanks.
So just for clarification, so I do live here, and so it was said that this was presented to the planning board. This is not what was presented to the planning board. So there were 4 homes in here, and 1 home was presented out here as the 5th
Okay.
home. And the other was, I never heard any discussion about this being filled. There was discussion that perhaps all of these were man-made, but I never remember any discussion about that being filled. And also just in terms of where, this has nothing to do with you folks, but where this is, there is a small woods that runs here. And my contention is that there is wetlands, or at least vernal pools that are part of that. Again, I know that that's not within your purview.
okay.
The other is that this idea that there was going to be a road coming through here was pretty much negated by the belief that because this is 40 feet and this is 40 feet, the planning board basically said that they would, the leaning was on many members who attested to that they could not support them. So just for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
So you don't have a position necessarily, you just wanted to point out that there's more wetlands?
And
In the
just that what was said about what was presented is not the fact, because there was a different presentation of a 5-lot presentation, but one was out on Brentwood Road, and then there were 4 on the heart of in the property itself. That's what was shown to us.
Okay. All right, why don't we let the public speak, finish speaking, and then we'll come back to you and you can respond, okay? Is there anyone else who would like to speak about this? Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Peg Aronian, 68 Washington Street, and I'll show you.
Yes, thank you. If you can take the microphone with you, because this is recorded, this way we can hear you.
This is Spruce, so we're here.
Okay,
Can you see that?
yes.
I'm sorry, here, on the other side of Washington.
Oh, so you're on the other side?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And I think the hardship that I would feel, and I think some of our neighbors would feel, has to do with drainage. We get flooded. We have 2 sump pumps in our cellar. The back of our lot, it all slopes down from this property, this way, into Washington Street and then down toward Crestview. And we find that anytime there's a disturbance, for example, our next door neighbor has recently added some fill to get above the clay. In this past spring, with all the rain that we had some severe impacts on our property. And so anytime there's disturbance of these wetlands or uplands flowing down to other people's properties, there is an impact and a hardship. And I think what do I want to say? It dominoes over to the town where by its extra water flowing into the storm sewers. Okay, and I think, I read the minutes from the planning board, and I think you talked about flooding. Yes, yes.
okay.
And it's a shame that lovely open spaces can't be preserved. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Liz Canada. I'm at 58 Columbus, and my father's a surveyor, so it's a disappointment how I am with maps, but I'll do my best here. He would be so ashamed of me. I'm pretty sure, Dan, you can help me out, because we're next door neighbors. I think we're right here. Yes. Okay. Maybe I'll show my dad this video. And I just want to echo what was already said. We have significant water in our yard from the field back there, and it comes down to us. And so I don't have much to say, except I didn't speak at the planning board meeting, but I want to make it clear that there is a lot of water, and it is a big issue in all of our properties in that area. So that's all I wanted to share.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Lisa Reynolds, and I live at 6 Brentwood Road. So I am the lot, I believe it's map 63, lot 95, which is directly adjacent to the wetlands. And I have some photographs of the drainage issues that I'd like to submit, if I may. The photographs that you're looking at, I believe, are the south end of my property, which when I did buy it, 26 years ago, no one told me that the water never would go away. It never went away. My backyard was unusable. I spent many days of planning and a lot of money to regrade the entire property so I could use it. So any mention of disturbing those wetlands and the 105 feet of frontage is very disconcerting. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else on this application? Okay, would the applicant like to respond to some of the comments?
Yeah, I just want to respond to Dan's comment that this was not the plan that the planning board had seen. And he is right, there was 5 lots, and we were originally showing a house up here. Because we were going to, our position is that because this is a man-made wetland, it's not subject to the 75-foot setback. We don't want to deal with that issue. We've heard Lisa loud and clear. We don't think it's appropriate to put a house here, and that's why we put it back here. We don't want to touch this wetland. We understand, all the concerns regarding water in the neighborhood. So that's why this plan changed. And then finally, with regard to water, even though it has really little bearing on a frontage variance, if we had pursued a 10-lot subdivision with a town road, there'd be a lot more water. So I think that, I hope that everybody understands that it took us a long time to get here. This is not what we didn't want to be here. We wanted to come in with a 10-lot subdivision plan and walk away with an approval. This I think is a very good compromise, and I think it addresses the concerns of everybody, aside from the fact that it's being developed.
Can I ask, I know commercial site plan approval requires that they certify through an engineer that all the water remains on site, basically. I'm not as familiar with the subdivision regulations, but are you required to provide for drainage so that the water stays on site and doesn't end up on other people's property?
Yes. And yes, the answer is yes. I'm sure that'll be part of the planning board's subdivision process. And the other thing I did want to mention was that this is the second time that I've heard Dan contend that there's wetlands here. And this plan was prepared by a New Hampshire licensed certified wetland scientist that does a lot of work in Exeter. And we did look at this area and found no wetlands. So I want to make sure that this information is accurate. It was done by a reputable wetland scientist.
So just for clarification, all 5 lots, we're not done yet. All 5 lots meet all size requirements, lot size requirements? All
Yeah.
of the construction that you're planning on doing meets all setback requirements?
Absolutely, yep. So the smallest lot is, I believe it's number 3. It is 19,000 square feet. 15,000 square feet is required. The largest lot, being number 1, is 1.75 acres.
But that includes all the wetlands?
It does, yeah. I mean, I don't know what this is, but I would say it's probably, 20,000 square feet, 25,000 square feet if we didn't include, but they don't deduct the wetlands, but yeah. So they're, it's almost 5 acres and 5
So no
lots.
relief is being sought for anything other than the access roads?
That's
the 2
exactly
access
right,
driveways?
the reduced frontage. Yep.
And none of the abutters to the roads are here. What is the width of the driveway and what is the width of the land in each place?
I don't know, because we haven't been to the planning board. I believe, the town planner said, 14, 16 feet wide, or around 14 feet wide is what I think that they're gonna want before the split. So it'll be a 14-foot wide driveway. I can't promise you that, because we haven't been through the process, but that's, I believe, what they're gonna require. Probably, 12 feet with a foot of gravel on either side. It'll be paved.
You've got 40 and 42 respectively, top and bottom?
This is actually, I think, 44.
Okay.
So it's actually, each of these lots will have 22 and a half, is it 22, Mark, or 22 feet of frontage? This is exactly 40, so each of these lots will have, the driveway will go right down the middle. And the other thing that it allows us to do, and this abutter is not here. But, what's that? I don't. That abutter is not here. This abutter is not, you're on the other side. So our hope is this house was built, I think, 4 feet from the property line. So our goal is to, we obviously don't need a wide driveway. Our goal is to keep it as narrow as possible and allow a buffer along that property line so we don't impact their home. And I believe that abutter I know they support this project, they support this driveway.
Can you tell me about vegetation on the, that's there and that will remain or that will be replaced?
I can't. There's not a whole lot in here. There are some, there's a little bit down the side. I don't know what's gonna remain in place. Obviously, there's a tree line down through here. It's largely fields. Are your concerns with the driveway accesses?
Well, my concern is the width of that driveway access and the proximity to the homes on Brentwood Road on both sides, especially the abutter to the
So,
east.
if the driveway is let's just say it's 14 feet wide, there's gonna be, now you're making me do math, 12 feet on either side.
Hey, you're the engineer. Come on, man.
There's gonna be about 12 feet of grass vegetation on either side of the driveway. So certainly room to provide a buffer.
It does say in the application that you'd provide screening at the boundaries. Is that's what you're talking about?
I was hoping for
Yeah.
some more details on that, what was meant by that.
I think this is probably the tightest spot right here, and we'd certainly agree to a vegetated buffer along that property line, on our property. I don't think there's any room on the abutters for it.
As you said, it's unclear from the plan, the house is 4 feet from the property line?
We haven't had this survey, but I believe it's 4 feet from the lot line, and I think
It's not surprising.
I think the owner represented that at the planning board meeting.
I actually have a question for the butter who submitted the pictures, and I apologize, I missed her name.
Lisa Reynolds.
Lisa Reynolds. I just wanted to confirm, there's a date on these pictures, and it looks like it's from 1996. Is that?
Lisa, you need to go, Ms. Reynolds, you need to go back to
Yeah,
the,
thank you.
Yes, it's 1996.
Okay,
I had it regraded in 2013.
okay, I just wanted to make sure that the date on these photos was accurate.
It's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Record.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Is there another abutter who wishes to, another member of the public?
I'm
You can- Can you state your name?
My name is Katie Lamontagne, and I
And your
live on
address?
4 Brentwood Road. So I am to the left of the Brentwood Road driveway, the driveway that they're proposing. I'm just curious, because I have no vegetation on my side, and it's about 11 feet from my house is where the property line is. So I'm not really sure what could be done to protect my home and my family from, cars potentially just going through. And I know it's only 2 houses. The plan is much better than the previous plan. I'm worried about privacy, and, I have a son who's almost 2. And, I'm worried about that type of situation, privacy fence, or something to that nature.
Okay, and so you said you're to the, as we look at that map, yes, that's it, to the left of that.
Yes, that's my
And you said
house.
you're about 11 feet from the property line?
Yes.
Your house is, or the end of your lot
My
is?
house is,
Okay,
I believe, and that's a guess that we did based on a survey that had done previously and that we went out and, estimated.
okay, and you said there's nothing there right now?
Nothing.
But it's an open space
It's the
now?
open space to the access that goes into the field.
Okay.
So that was actually used as an access when it was farmed?
I don't know, because I've only lived there for about 2.5 years. But I believe so. When we moved in, we didn't know that it was a potential to be a road. We were told it was an access, but we just thought it was an access for them to get into the field for their agriculture, which they weren't doing at that time. They had stopped that by then, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes, I'm done, thank you.
And state your name again, please.
Peg Aronian, 68 Washington Street. My question is there a significant difference between a natural wetland and a wetland that may have been created decades ago for use by the farmer? To me, a wetland is a wetland.
So for your, you're talking about your concerns as far as the water
Yeah,
and
yeah,
drainage. Okay.
years ago, we went through a building project where wetlands was, I think we were the beta test for the state's Shoreland Protection Act. And it was impressed upon us how valuable wetlands are and what you can and cannot do and plant and get close to. And I'm wondering, is there a difference? Because they keep talking about man-made wetland. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't think any of us are experts on wetlands here,
Yeah.
on the board, but I do know that there's, values assigned to different types of wetlands, and there's, prime wetlands have certain value based on, I think, the habitat it provides or the creatures found in it. And, we're probably not the right people to answer your question, but I do believe there's some differences, and I just can't.
I think the issue, and again, not knowing for sure, but I think the issue here is the Exeter regulations require a buffer from just natural wetlands, but not man-made wetlands. So that's the local buffer, that's the local distance you have to be away from a wetland, as opposed to the state requirements, which I don't believe make any distinction. But again, in this case, they have said they would preserve this or be open to a condition to preserve this wetland. So I'm not sure that it matters, but I think that's why it was being stated is if they sought approval, and the town determines that this is a man-made wetland, they would be able to go right up to the edge of that wetland.
May I ask Mr. Krebs a question? Do you mind? Just a clarification on the plan that you've submitted, you have two different marks on here. And one of them is the wetland boundary and the other is what, the 75-foot no cut, no disturb boundary on the plan, is that correct?
That's, I believe so, Bob, yep.
75.
Yeah, this is a 75-foot setback, yep.
So that's a 75-foot, the
Yes.
dashed line is a 75-foot setback from the wetland,
Correct,
which is okay.
yep.
And so there is no impact being planned either by roadway or house on any of your land into the 75-foot setback?
No, and you can actually see that we actually held the structural setbacks beyond those. So, yep, so we have no desire, and we're not seeking approval to impact the wetland setbacks at all for this wetland.
Okay. And you do have a plan for retaining the water on site?
We don't yet because we need the variance first, then the planning board will certainly require that.
Was that addressed with the planning board
On your 10?
on the other development?
No, because it was just design review,
Okay.
but it'll be a part of the planning approval process.
And just to clarify, so everyone knows for the record too, you have shown building, envelopes or building, but that is just proposed. Those are not, you're not proposing those.
No, in fact, I hate doing this, but, if I don't put a typical house on there, people might say, well, it's not big enough for a house. So this is these are good-sized houses. You can see they're bigger than the houses surrounding them. So at least it gives you an idea of what could be built there. We're certainly not, we'll meet the setbacks for each lot. We won't, we're not asking for reduction in setbacks. So it could be something like this, but the house could move somewhere within that building envelope, sure.
And the size could change as
That
long
size
as it
could
complies
change,
with the
sure.
ordinance.
They
I just
could
want to
be
make
bigger or
sure
smaller.
that's
Yep,
clear for
absolutely.
everyone.
And then to clarify the man-made wetlands, if there wasn't a distinction, every roadside swale in Exeter would be subject to a 75-foot setback if they hold water. So that's why there's a distinction.
And this might be a question for Mr. Johnson instead of you, would you consider, or would you accept a condition on any approval that might be granted, that you would seek no further setback variances? In other words, if you sell lot number 1 to somebody who wants to build into their setbacks, we would prefer that the envelopes stay the way that they're presented.
Yeah, I think we would. The only thing we'd like to reserve the right, and again, as we design the subdivision plan, it may be that we can convey some land to an abutter off of the frontage onto Brentwood Road. We might come back just on the frontage if that turns out to be something that we want to do.
My concern was primarily with the
But if we're
setbacks.
talking about the setbacks from the side, front setbacks, side setbacks, rear setbacks.
Right, in other words, you've proposed building envelopes here, and I don't want somebody to say, "Oh, I want a bigger house, I
No,
want to
we're
encroach
not,
in the setback."
nope, we're fine with that condition.
Fine, thank you.
We're trying to be transparent on this, so.
Yeah.
But it could be that in terms of the lot one frontage, since we are coming not off of the frontage from Brentwood Road, as we design this, if it looks like there's an opportunity to do something for an abutter or put up some buffer zone, we might come back and look for variance to reduce that frontage, but that would not affect the actual setbacks within the building area.
Thank you.
And would you also be open to a condition to provide some sort of screening along those two driveways?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be, the planning board's gonna look at it as well. I mean, I think this does not give us the right to do anything on the site other than go to the planning board.
Understood.
And your planning board's gonna look at drainage, they're gonna look at screening. I'm sure the abutters who are here tonight are gonna be at the planning board meeting and have concerns about drainage. We're gonna have to address it through that process. We're just trying to get to the planning board, where I'm sure all these issues are gonna be discussed.
Sure.
Screening, I'm sure, is gonna be discussed as well.
Well, in your application, it does state that the applicant will provide screening.
And that's our intent, but I think the actual screening will be worked out through
The
the planning
nature
board
of the
process.
screening, yeah.
The nature of the screening, okay.
So we're
Okay.
trying to get to the planning board. We're happy to come by here, but, a lot of these issues that have been raised, we expect to hear again when we go through the planning board process.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, well, close public session then and begin deliberations.
So I'm over here struggling. We have a new requirement for 100-foot frontage. Not new this week, but within the last year or so. Obviously, there's not 100 feet of frontage.
That's why they're asking us for the variance, yeah.
So my understanding that this was specifically the reason for the change, to prevent this kind of, what's the term that you run
Panhandle,
a
yeah.
driveway?
And then
Pork chop.
Pork chop, yeah.
Yeah. Now, maybe I misunderstood, but for instance, earlier in the year, there were some folks who wanted to, build on a lot that was only 90 feet wide. And because they didn't have 100 feet of frontage, we denied their request. Obviously, it's not 100 feet frontage here. What other reason would there be than to prevent just this?
I think the difference is I think it's the difference between preventing new pork chop lots and this case, which is it's an existing one. This has been allowed to be carved off in a way where they left these little entrances, I'm sure for future, access for future development. So I think that's the difference is between creating a new lot that has, where you're creating that pork chop versus here, those little handles already exist. It's the question of what you do on the interior and again, I remember that application. I don't know that I sat on it, so I don't recall all the details, but I think that entire lot was less than 90 feet.
It was.
As opposed to these lots, which are all, pretty big and certainly in line with the rest of the surrounding area. It's just, when those lots were carved out, they just didn't leave much. They only left 40 feet of frontage in those two places, and then the 105 feet, but, my concern there is, especially in light of hearing from all of the neighbors whose primary concern seems to be drainage. You have that 100 feet of frontage, but you can't do anything with it without impacting the wetland.
making
And that's
it worse.
clearly gonna be, I mean,
Yeah,
whether that's
historically-
man-made or not, that's where the water is draining now.
Historically, the lot makes a lot of sense because it was used for agriculture. You don't need access to the roadways. You just need one. The 105 foot is closest to the Ellison's home and to their business. So that would have been the obvious place for them to come through there. And, you know, the property around the edge, which abuts roads, would have been sold for homes. So that makes the whole thing makes perfect sense. Now you've got this piece of land sitting there.
In the case you're talking about, Rick, we denied it on the basis of hardship, and in this case, I think because of the configuration and the, amount of frontage and access into the interior of the lot, that's the hardship here.
Yeah, I think it does go to hardship. This lot was
Whereas the other-
pre-existing in this shape, and in order to develop it.
Okay.
I mean, my other thought is just taking a practical perspective here. Yes, they probably could not get approval for that 10-lot subdivision with the
Right.
road. But, I do think it's telling that other than really just really a waiver for road width, you can fit 10 lots in here. So I am convinced that this is a pretty reasonable compromise between, what could be and what is, it's half. And again, it's not clear that they can do that by right, because they need those waivers, but if that's all they need, and it sounds like that's all they need, there's a lot more, there are a lot more lots that could go in there.
Well, as far as hardship goes, though, I would say I'm more convinced by the odd shape of the lot, because the 10 units, the 10-lot subdivision was not approved, so I don't know if that's really,
Well, and they
I
have
mean,
no
we can
right,
say they
have
could-
no right to a 10-lot
Right,
subdivision, but I
so
do think, just in terms of reasonability.
yes. I mean, this is a limited, on the other hand, this is a limited plan. It's a smaller number of lots that they're seeking. They're not overreaching, but the shape of the lot, I think, distinguishes this from other things that we've considered in the past.
Shall we go through the criteria?
Do it?
Idea.
Yeah, why don't I do it? The variance, so the variance criteria, number one, the variance is not contrary to the public interest, and the spirit of the ordinance is observed. So the proposed use must not conflict with the explicit or implicit purposes of the ordinance, which is obviously to make sure that we don't have too many properties jammed into too small a bit of frontage on our roads. And must not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, threaten public health, safety, or welfare, or otherwise injure public rights. We have not heard from the abutters, except on a very limited basis, that this would alter the character of the neighborhood. In fact, by having a relatively modest number of houses, given the size of the property, I would say that this actually is in keeping with the spirit or the tenor of the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood, as opposed to 10 or anything else back in there. So it is my sense that it meets requirement or criteria 1 and 2. Hearing nothing further, we'll move on. Substantial justice is done. The benefits of the applicant should not be outweighed by harm to the general public or to other individuals. The only potential harm to the general public or to other individuals would be to abutters. And their primary concern is drainage, the conditions of the wetlands, which will not be touched. And so I don't see a problem with the substantial justice.
And,
So I think
and
that
screening with at least those two.
Screening, and I think we've had pretty good agreement that we should make mention of screening in any approval that's made, as well as the planning board is gonna have to weigh in on that as
On
well.
the screening.
Right.
What about the?
Although could we- if-
drainage requirements, should we bother mention? This will have
And
to-
definitely,
yeah,
the planning board's definitely,
They're gonna deal with that.
definitely gonna have to deal with
And I
that.
think-
We can
And
certainly
we-
make it part of
Yeah.
our statement so the planning board sees it, but
And we need to be careful that, the planning board needs
Latitude,
leeway
yeah.
to do their
Right, right.
For their approvals.
And that's
Yeah.
beyond our
Right.
pay grade.
Well, and I mentioned that because it seems like that was a main concern of the abutters, that development in any way might affect water issues, and that,
Right.
we know that that will go before the planning board if the
Exactly.
address is there, so.
Exactly. And the minutes of this evening's meeting, which will be entered into the record, do indicate the applicant's willingness and desire not to touch the wetlands,
Right,
which is important. Including the 75-foot buffer, whether that's required by the town or not. Criteria number 4, that the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. We have had no testimony either way. It's really not relevant relative to a 10-lot subdivision, since that is not something that would fly. But clearly, this is going to have less impact on any abutters, both financially and otherwise, than a larger subdivision or a larger division of that property would. So I think we're okay on criteria number 4. And then everyone's favorite, number 5, literal enforcement of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship. And that means that because of the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, that there is no fair and substantial relationship between the public purposes of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision to this property, and the proposed use is a reasonable one.
Well, I would suggest the proposed use is definitely a reasonable one. I don't have any strong opinion on the whether the fair and substantial relationship between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provision to the property.
Well, yeah,
Maybe.
I'll speak to that. I think, generally, my understanding is the purpose of frontage is to provide enough distance between homes for privacy, primarily.
And access,
For
reasonable.
access, and
Safety.
it's safety. But in this case, I think given, I'm convinced that the applicant has shown that, privacy is not going to be an issue. There's sufficient room on the lots, for the houses to be far enough apart. Given the size of a potential driveway, limited number of lots, there's, safety doesn't appear to be an issue, privacy doesn't appear to be an issue, considering that the applicant has also indicated that they'll provide screening. And made that a part of their application, and they're subject to that as part of their application as well. So, I think given that, I think it doesn't meet or there is no substantial relationship.
Madam Chair, given that we seem to have no issue with any of the 5 criteria, I'd make a motion that we should grant the application as presented to us with the following 2 conditions. First, that the applicant and the planning board pay particular attention to the issue of screening for the abutters to both of the driveway entrances to the property. And second, that the no further requests for variances regarding setbacks on any of the 5 lots in the proposed development would be considered. Kevin, does that seem good to you?
Well, we can make the motion. I think we need a condition for wetlands. I also have some concern that second condition is enforceable.
I know.
For a future,
Yeah.
But
I have a history of putting forth conditions that are not enforceable as lessons for applicants rather than, I'm gonna be the preacher of this
I
board.
guess I'll second for the, purpose
For the
of further
purpose
discussion
of
of
discussion.
conditions.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so discussion on the motion.
So, I don't feel there's the need for the second condition for further variances, because I'm not sure whether it's enforceable, and I think, the record is pretty clear. Any applicant would have to come in, and they would have to show that they meet all the 5 criteria, and that there is hardship. I'm not sure they could do that.
Could we have it apply to this applicant?
We can, although I think this applicant is probably, this applicant is subject to whatever they put in their application, for one. And I think the plan here is to is subdivide and sell these lots. So, I don't even know that this applicant is going to build, they may. But, I mean, I don't feel as strongly about that. I think more importantly, I'd like to see a clear condition on the wetlands. You know, I think the hardship in large part, rests on the existence of those wetlands and avoidance. So I'd like to at least add another condition, that there be no, driveway or.
So you want to make this a motion? Or are you just talking?
No, he's
Well,
just
let me just talk,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd be open to what that language is, but that there be no, no driveways through the wetlands and
Right.
75-foot wetland buffer or, building envelope within that. So I don't want any homes going into it either.
I think that's a good
I'm
idea.
open, yeah, I'm open to
Yeah.
your logic on removing my second, but I want to hear from other members of the board whether they think it's a useful thing to have in there or not, the second condition on my motion.
Oh, I would be a little concerned that I don't know that we can condition approval on giving up, either this applicant giving up a right to come back and ask for another setback, which I think is
Or
one
even
thing,
in
or even
future
other.
property owner.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know.
I appreciate the
if that's
sentiment, but I
enforceable
don't
or
know
we
that-
could
No,
do
it's
that.
enforceable.
So I would shy away from including something like that.
Okay. If somebody wants to make a motion to remove that, then we can certainly, I would approve that.
Well, do we want to vote on the motion that's on the table and take care of that and then make a new motion? But
Well, I don't know that we put a motion on the table, so why don't I make a motion to,
you did, but,
I did.
one.
Yeah, but
and you
we're,
seconded it.
and seconded, yeah, we have a seconded motion. But what you can do is make a motion to add and delete, and we can set that, and then that'll take us out to the bigger one.
Or we could
So-
do it in 2 steps if we're.
We can, I'm trying to do it in one
Careful.
step. Trying to do it in one step.
Is it cleaner okay,
It's fine either way.
okay.
yeah, so I'd move to amend
The
the motion to remove the second proposed condition
Agreed.
to restrict, further variances, and to add a condition that, that there be no driveways or buildings within the wetlands or 75-foot wetland buffer on,
What?
You can just leave it there.
yeah,
Yeah.
as shown on the plan.
Okay,
Right.
okay. All right, so that's, so we have a motion to amend,
I'll second that motion.
okay.
So now we have to vote on Kevin's amendment, which
Yeah.
changes the original motion.
And I think the applicants are jumping up and down. We are in
Yes,
deliberative,
yeah.
but if
Well, do you have
there,
if we have a question?
if
for
we have a
them?
question, yes. So, I guess let me just ask, do you have concerns about the language of that motion?
I think you should reference the wetland shown on lot, is this one? Lots 1 and 2.
Oh, because of the other.
Because there are
yeah,
two,
That's fine.
okay.
Lots 1 and 2. Lots 1 and 2 on the submitted plan.
That's fair.
I don't really feel like everybody knows what we're talking about.
Okay,
So
so instead of just no driveways or building on the wetlands, it's on the
I would
wetlands
amend
shown in.
that proposed motion to say instead of as shown on the plan, as shown on lots 1 and 2 on the
On the
plan.
plan.
Seconded.
Okay, so the motion to amend has been seconded. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to amend that's been seconded? Do we want, the member of we've closed public session, so,
I will say the reason I'm focused on this is because on this particular wetland is because this wetland has a clear 75-foot buffer. Any wetlands that are jurisdictional wetlands that are on this property, you will need would need a wetlands, a DES dredge and fill permit. So the fact that we're granting this condition does not mean that any existing wetlands that are there or that are found on this property can be filled.
You're just
They would need further
specifying-
approval.
Okay. This is just to be specific about
Just to
wetlands that
clarify
have been
my-
identified now.
Clarify my thinking
Okay.
for.
Yeah, we're just the zoning board, we don't supersede DES or the planning
That's right.
board or anything else. This is just part of,
This isn't the only board we have to come to?
no, sorry.
Just the first.
So, but, okay, but normally the planning board is the one to worry about wetlands. Do we want to muck around with their bailiwick?
Yeah, I do, because in this case, my feeling is that in finding, for me, the finding of hardship is based in part, not solely, but in part on the existence of this wetland.
Which precludes entry to
Going
this
through
lot.
the-
Includes
yeah,
entry through
the
the.
wetland.
Through
Yeah,
that.
through the 105-foot.
Exactly. Yeah, the hardship is based on the existence of that wetland.
Okay,
Okay. So do we know?
Vote on
so
the motion.
Vote on the, we have the
Amendment.
we've
We have to
seconded the
vote-
motion
yeah,
to
We have to vote
amend.
to amend the original motion.
Are we ready to vote on the motion to amend?
Yes.
Is everyone all set? Okay. All in favor?
all right.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we've voted on the motion to amend.
So can we now have somebody tell us what the motion
Yeah.
says?
The motion has three parts. Number one is to approve. Number two is the original first condition, which was to request that the applicant and the planning board pay particular attention to screening on the two entryways. And Kevin's motion that there be no road or building construction within the 75-foot envelope of the wetland on lots 1 and 2,
As shown on the plan.
as shown on the plan,
Okay.
in so many words.
Okay,
So that's the amended motion
that's
that's
the
before us.
amended motion. Do we need to second the amended motion?
It's already been
It's
seconded.
already been
We voted.
seconded. Okay, any other,
We already voted for the amended motion,
Right.
right?
We
any
voted for
other
the amendment.
discussion?
For the amendment,
Right.
yes, so now we just have to vote on the amended one.
Okay, all in favor
Aye.
What are we
Aye.
voting
on the amended motion
Okay,
To grant
to grant
the
the
application
applicant?
with
got it, okay.
conditions.
Aye, aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so the motion passes and the application is granted with the
Thank you.
conditions as set out. Thank you very much. Okay,
1914.
this was Mr. Falzone, correct?
That was Falzone,
Yes.
correct.
So where do we talk about subdivisions in our magic book?
Thank you, Karen.
You know me, I like being preachy.
I do know you.
I like being preachy.
No, that wasn't the problem. We all worked out
I
fine.
liked that.
The other one?
I
Yeah,
like
it
mine.
wasn't, it's a good sentiment. I don't know that
Is that?
it,
I agree, I agree, it would have been totally unenforceable.
Well, they,
well, the whole point of the zoning.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were submitting those.
Here for 5 weeks.
That's,
This summer, so
Ms. Reynolds? Of course.
place on
They're down here.
place code.
There you go.
she's been keeping them for years.
Yeah.
Place code.
Do you want them to be part of this record, or do you just want them back? Because we could
Because we
probably.
could copy them
Okay, so you go in.
and then get the original, is that what you mean?
Yeah, and then get you
Get the originals back to you?
So then we,
This way we can show that they were submitted. So, Barb would do this.
Yeah, I guess I'd ask Doug to,
Yeah.
when Barb gets back.
Yeah,
He would just come to the
Come to the
planning.
plan,
So
come to the
that
town
planning
hall.
building department, right outside the door, you just go there and they should have them for you.
And today's
or do
Tuesday,
you want
give it
them
until,
sent to you? Maybe they can send them to you. If you,
we can mail them if you
So,
like.
so why don't you put your name and address on
Yeah.
the
Well,
space on that
why
one?
don't you write it down?
yeah, yeah, okay. What was your name again, Reynolds, Lisa?
You ready?
you'll sit in the audience.
And you're, that's what your name is.
Ready as I'll ever be.
6?
So she got land on this estate.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll have those sent to you. Thank you.
So there's two orange spots.
There are two.
So that means land
All
is
right.
gonna get transferred to them.
But all of a
There'll
sudden,
be a
we're
lot
talking
line adjustment.
subdivision, it doesn't count.
No, it does. I mean,
I
it's
don't
the minimum
understand.
for the lot.
Negotiations.
It's the minimum for the lot.
It's the upshot here.
Okay, so you are,
They-
yeah.
I am gonna
they
recuse
run a
myself
road
and
through it,
actually
put
just go
that-
sit in the audience.
Okay, so,
R2.
the next application.
Still in session, please? No problem.
The next application is the application of Great Bridge Properties LLC for a special exception per Article 4, Section 4.2, Schedule 1, permitted uses, and Article 5, Section 5.2, to permit the proposed construction of a multi-use structure on the property located at 2 Meeting Place Drive, and a special exception from Article 4, Section 4.4, Schedule 3, Note Number 12, to allow an increased height of said structure not to exceed 50 feet.
Dyslexia, sometimes
The
gets.
subject property is located in the C2 Highway Commercial Zoning District, tax map parcel 55-75, and this is case number 19-15. We have one member of the board who has recused herself. And we have 4 board members and 2 alternates, so we need one alternate to, both can participate in discussion, and one will vote as well. Do we have a preference, Martha and Chris, as to?
Well, I can just leave, I mean.
Well, we don't, I mean, you can participate in the discussion if you'd like,
Or you can go home.
or you can leave, it's up to you.
I'll vote, that's no problem with me.
Sorry, mate.
You'll vote, okay, so Chris will be voting.
Chris is gonna vote then, okay.
So you can stay, Martha, and discuss, or you can go home. Whatever you'd like, if you want
Why
to
don't I go
participate.
home?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for showing
Yes.
up to.
Yes. Do you? No. Here you go, give him this folder.
It's like a weapon.
Weight to it.
It's got some substance there.
Okay,
Gentleman's waiting.
Excuse us.
Gentleman's waiting for us to settle down.
Just in case people get unruly, I'm just gonna start lightsaber people.
okay, would the applicant like to present?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Justin Passe from Donahue, Tucker, and Shindella here tonight. Thankful about the vacation of the room before our application came before you. I'm here on behalf of Great Bridge Properties, the applicant in this case. With me here tonight is Bill Castleton, one of the principals, along with Chris Davies of Great Bridge Properties. Also with me here tonight is Steve Height of Civil Works New England Engineering from Dover, who is the engineer on the application tonight. Some members of this board have some recollection, I'm sure, of the property and of the project and concept that's before you tonight. Our hope is that this is a streamlined hearing. I'd like to start with just the 20,000-foot view, which from our perspective, go ahead.
I actually have to say something. I apologize for doing this when Martha left. I don't think it's an issue, but I didn't realize until I heard Chris Davies' name that I have done some work for Great Bridge in the past. Unrelated project is in Portsmouth, but, my firm and I have done some work on it. So, I wanted to put that out there if you feel there's a need to, for me to recuse myself, but.
No, I appreciate it, Kevin, and certainly it's hard to avoid those conflicts, and certainly there's nothing relevant to this case, and so we appreciate the transparency, but no objection from the applicant.
And this is work that's concluded.
This is work that is concluded,
and
it is
unrelated.
unrelated to this
Okay.
project, this property.
I don't know.
I think we're in
Okay.
safe territory.
Yes,
Okay.
so, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay.
Also, before we get into the substance, as always, I'd like to thank Doug, because he's a great asset, and we met with him a couple times on this project as it's sort of been resurrected. So as I was saying, the summary here is that this is a great use. What we're talking about is a multi-use building with a commercial first floor, 3 floors of affordable housing. The property, of course, is formerly known as 85 Epping Road. It's now 2 Meeting Place Drive, tax map 55, lot 75. It's 3.2 acres, 140 thousand odd feet of place. Right now, it's just unimproved. it was the front essentially of the meeting place development. It is, by its nature, sort of the logical extension of that development. So the summary is it's a great use. It's going to be great for the town of Exeter. The second prong of the summary is that this is very well vetted. I'll explain a little bit about the procedural history of this project and the property. It's longstanding. Doug could fill a volume with all the work that's gone into it, as could Steve. But this is a very well vetted use. This is sort of the ultimate conclusion about what makes sense for this property and what makes sense for the neighborhood within the C2. And then the third sort of prong is that this is a great applicant who has a great track history. Bill's certainly available to get up and talk to you a little bit about what Great Bridge Properties does in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, but it's going to make a valuable contribution to the town of Exeter. So as you read, Madam Chair, we're here for two forms of relief. Both special exceptions are special exceptions that were already obtained for this property for a virtually identical project back in 2013, which I'll explain. But the first is to allow multi-use in the C2 pursuant to section 4.2, schedule 1 of the zoning ordinance. And the second is to allow a building height up to 50 feet where 35 is otherwise required. And that's pursuant to section 4.4, schedule 3, note 12. So a brief, boring overview of the procedural history of this case. This matter first came before the ZBA for, again, the identical relief, a multi-use special exception and a height special exception in August of 2013. And the concept at that time was nearly identical. If you put this plan side by side, the new concept is actually a lot better. I mean, it's less parking space because the commercial space that's being proposed on the first floor is smaller. The configuration of the building is a little bit better because there's not as much parking between the actual building and Epping Road. But otherwise, the footprint of the building, the use of the building, it was nearly identical to what's being proposed now. So that's August of 2013. And of course, under the town's regulations, these special exception approvals are good for 3 years. So Bob Felder, the owner of the property and the applicant at that time, then underwent a significant process to permit the property for a couple of different uses, which ended in June of 2015 with this use, the multi-use. Commercial first, and then 3 floors of residential affordable housing above that. Before that, there was lots of proposals, lots of concepts for this property to include a restaurant use, higher density commercial use, but ultimately, and through lots of work by mostly Bob Felder and certainly Steve as well, we ended up with this concept. And so that was June of 2015, we have site plan approval for the multi-use project. So now we get going. As many on this board are familiar, and certainly as Ms. Davies is familiar, the process of getting funding through New Hampshire Housing Finance is very complicated. The administration in 2016 that came in made changes to the regulations, which made it even more difficult and cumbersome of a process. So before we knew it, really, in 2016, the ZBA approvals were first up for an extension because no work had been done. The approval hadn't been granted. We didn't have the funding. So in August of 2016, we came for a 1-year extension, which was granted. In August of 2017, we came back for a 1-year extension of these same 2 approvals, which was granted. Again, at that point, there was some commitment from New Hampshire Housing Finance, but it hadn't been, the process had not been finalized. And then I was here, before that was Mike Donahue of my firm. I was here in August of 2018, asking for yet a third 1-year extension on the property because at that point, Mr. Felder thought that he wanted to convey the property and have someone else develop it. So the other sort of bright shining light in our application is the fact that there's a great applicant who now wants to develop it and has the means and the know-how to do so. So that's sort of the long procedural history. Certainly, if the board has questions, both Bill and Steve will be available to address those, and Mr. Pryor, you already do.
I already do have a question. Was it granted again in August of 18 and has
Yes.
it, and expired in August of 19?
Exactly, so, and
So there are no open approvals
the
on this
planning
property?
board, the planning board approval is gone and the ZBA's approval is gone. So we're at square one.
Right.
Which is sort of the summary of the procedural history here. We're back at square one. This is a prerequisite. We hope to get before the planning board in the very near future. We've had some preliminary discussions with the town. I think that those are very positive. So that's where we're at procedurally. We're back at square one.
You've mentioned that it's virtually the same as what was previously approved. Can you, without getting too into the weeds, I'd just like to get a better sense of what the difference is between what was previously approved and what's here tonight.
Sure, well, Steve can jump in and supplement, but my understanding is that previously, the size of the building, 4 stories, multi-use, commercial bottom, 3 floors of affordable housing, that's all identical.
Okay.
I think 24 units were proposed, where 28 is allowed under the density regulations, and in this concept, there are 28 units. It's, 7 two-family, 2-bedroom, 13 single bedrooms, and then, 8 essentially studio kind of proficiencies. And the footprint's the same.
Okay, so it sounds like really the only difference is the number of units.
The number of units, and again,
And the height is the same.
the height is the same, number of units, and it's really, if you look at the plan, I mean, there's less parking space because the commercial office space on the first floor is significantly less. It was like 6,000 square feet in the first concept, and it's 1,200 square feet now. So less parking is required, and we're actually hoping to even, I think we're proposing 51 spots now. We're hoping in the planning board process to get a waiver to reduce that even more.
Less.
We're hoping to lose 8 more spots.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks, that's helpful.
sure.
You have made several suggestions that this is affordable housing. Is that appear in your application anywhere?
I'm not sure if I provided in the written application. Certainly, I'm making that representation now. That's what Great Bridge does. I mean, that's,
I'm aware that's what Great Bridge does. I was surprised not to see it in the application. I'm just wondering if it is a part of, not making it part of the application, does that imply that it might not be affordable?
no, 28 units are affordable housing.
All 28 are affordable?
All 28.
We've interrupted you enough.
No, it's okay.
I have one more interrupt before.
All
I say
right,
that.
maybe we have.
Just a basic question. This is going in the front part
Yeah.
of where that,
Yeah, so this,
so right on,
this parcel has,
Epping.
it now derives its address from Meeting Place Drive, but it was formerly Epping Road. It's
Right.
that kind of
Okay.
rectangular.
It faces Epping Road without access, direct access onto Epping
Correct.
Road. Okay.
okay.
Well, since we're asking questions.
Sure.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
One question, and I think it's just a typo in the application, but it talked about, variance relief for the height. That was, did you mean to say special exception? Or was there
I could
actual
reference.
variances?
No, there weren't previous variances for this, parcel. It
Well,
may-
for the other, was it for the
I think I'm
other?
referencing there the fact that because behind the C2 there, it's a residential zone, those applications got variance relief to have a height of a building that's, consistent with
okay.
what we're proposing.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. And if this is the same height as the rear buildings that are existing?
See if you can answer that, but I believe the variance relief that it was obtained was to allow it to go to 50 feet in the, Meeting Place application.
This building's 48 feet, 2 inches.
I'm just trying to get a sense of how it's going to, what the comparison is gonna be to what's already there, those buildings.
Steve High with Civil Works. The answer is yes, same height.
Okay.
Those are four-story buildings the same.
Okay,
So they'll be, whether they're within a foot or so, they're gonna be 50 foot or less.
got it. And approximately the same.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I was just gonna go briefly through the special exception criteria and sort of apply them to both requests sort of at the same time. So the first one is a requirement that the use is permitted as a special exception as set forth in the zoning ordinance. Of course, this is. The second is that the use is designed, located, and proposed to be operated such that public health, safety, and welfare and the convenience of the public will be protected, and certainly we would suggest that it is. I mean, the big point here is that this is gonna go through the site review process with the planning board. This is a relief that has already been granted, and well vetted. So, I think the idea is that certainly the public health, safety, and welfare is protected. It's also consistent with the area. It's consistent with the meeting place in the back. It's consistent with the commercial use across the street with the Great Bay kids and the essential character of the neighborhood in general. The third requirement is that the proposed use is compatible with the zone district and adjoining post-1972 development. We would suggest that it is. The greatest evidence with regards to that prong is the meeting place directly behind it and the other commercial uses in the area. The next requirement is that adequate landscaping and screening are provided, and certainly I think the site plan, which was part of the package that we've showed you, depicts adequate landscaping, but as the board talked about in its previous application here tonight, this will be subject to site review, and the planning board, I'm sure, will make all the recommendations and that they feel are appropriate in the context of landscaping. The next requirement is that there's adequate off-street parking, and as I've said, we're of course going to show a plan that complies with the parking regulations for the town of Exeter. As I've said, we're in the process of redesigning the site plan to hopefully lose more parking and to provide more green open space, which I think is good for everyone. And that's really based on Great Bridge's experience in the affordable housing context with the types of parking that are actually required in this type of use. The next requirement is that the use conform with the applicable regulations governing the district where it's located. And certainly we do. This is the only relief that we're required to obtain under the zoning ordinance. In all other respects and fashions, the use and the proposal complies with the town of Exeter's zoning requirements. The next requirement is that as a condition of special exception approval, the applicant may be required to obtain town plan review and or planning board approval. And of course, that's exactly what will happen here. We will go through the site review process through the planning board. And then the last sort of substantive requirement under the ordinance is that the proposal not adversely affect abutting or nearby property values. Our position is that it will be consistent with the neighborhood, consistent with the residential use behind it, consistent in the commercial context with the surrounding area, and that certainly there's no evidence to suggest otherwise before the board. The last two requirements are not applicable to us because we're not proposing the storage of explosive material, and because this is not a proposal for a use within the professional tech park district. So that's a substantive presentation. Certainly we'll entertain more questions if the board has any. And Mr. Choate has showed up to support us as well.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you plan to, are you applying for the, statutory workforce housing?
I can let Bill assess that, but my understanding is yes, there's like a preliminary application process in the late spring, April, May, and then a formal one-time a year type application in August timeframe, and that is indeed what we're hoping to meet that schedule. The idea is to get approval before then.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I ask in part because there was some discussion about whether that was in the application or not. You've said tonight that it will be. I just want to make sure that if we impose any conditions, that we are doing so properly and not, and clearly with the intent of what you're proposing, which is for New Hampshire workforce housing pursuant to the statute, which I should know offhand, but I can't think of.
That's correct.
Okay.
The
Thank you.
proposal and the concept is for multi-use 28 units of affordable housing pursuant to the statute.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And what is the commercial use on the bottom floor? Is there any sense of?
It's proposed, it's on the plan as a potential office or retail space. I don't think a tenant is lined up there, I think that's still in the works.
Okay.
I mean, really where the change happened on the first floor and where a lot of the commercial space went is some of the amenities for the actual residential use will be on the first floor to include like tenant storage and some of the additional mechanical parts of the building to be stored on that first floor.
But the proposal is that this will be third-party retail or office use?
Correct.
Good.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Is there someone else who'd like to?
No, unless there's any questions.
Okay, did you have a question for
Bill, do
any
you
of
wanna-
the other people who are here? I thought you.
Well, no, Justin answered my
Okay.
question, unless anyone wants to speak further to it, I'm.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And I see no members of the public. Okay, we'll close public session and begin deliberations.
This seems completely straightforward. I mean, we're essentially extending previous applications that had expired.
Right, it sounds like it's been approved before with.
Yeah, multiple times,
Right.
multiple times.
Right.
My only question, of course, is the one that Kevin touched on in his last comments, is whether we need to say anything about the fact that this is intended to be affordable housing, and that is not, those are words that do not appear in the
Yeah,
application.
no, I didn't see them in the application.
Kevin, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, I think, I think it's worthwhile. They presented it. We should just, when we make a motion, that we touch on that and that we include that in our, in the description of what we're approving. But, I think this is, to me, this meets the criteria. I'm happy to go through it, but, it's already been approved, but beyond that, it's clearly, we're doing this from scratch and it still meets the criteria, so.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree also.
You would have the specific language to make a motion regarding the affordable housing, so do you want to,
Should we go?
do you mind, Mike? Frankly, I think we've been through the criteria on this in the past, and as.
Well, can we say
We do
that-
have an explanation, saying it is a good idea, exactly. And saying that, as Kevin determined earlier, that the difference, the delta between this proposal and the previous one is trivial.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, I mean, I'll quickly go through it, just so we did. One, that the use is, it's permitted special exception, both the height and multi-use are both permitted as a special exception, so it meets that. The use is designed, located, proposed to be operated, that the public health, safety, and welfare, and convenience will be protected. It's consistent with what's there. I actually really like the fact that this is now mixed use. I've always sort of felt that this was sort of an island. I'm like the fact that this will be mixed use right up on Epping Road. It sort of connects everything. And it certainly, there's the existing drive, a roadway there. The health, safety, and welfare is certainly protected. The proposed use is compatible with the zone district and adjoining post-1972 development. It's the one that never really makes any sense, but, it's compatible with the district. It's allowed by special exception, and I think, again, the fact that this is mixed use, it's right, that there will be commercial on the first floor, right on Epping Road, is consistent with what is the intent of the ordinance and what the town is trying to do on Epping Road.
And what's there right now.
And what's there, and actually what's been recently approved, with, more, multifamily residential on that corridor. That adequate landscaping and screening are provided, that it's shown on the plans, and that'll be, I'm confident that that'll be fully vetted out by the planning board as part of the site plan review process. The adequate off-street parking and loading is provided. It meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. There's certainly plenty of room there for parking. And it sounds like there's potentially more than enough. So it meets that requirement. Use conforms with applicable regulations governing the district where located. They're only asking for those two special exceptions. There's no dimensional relief being sought. So it meets that. As a condition, the applicant we may require site plan approval. That has to happen anyway, so it's a non-issue. And that the use won't adversely affect abutting or nearby property values. It's consistent with what's around it and with those existing buildings, which will be the most affected and frankly will be benefited by the, more build out. And then the next two are really not applicable.
Okay, all right.
So how long, is this just gonna be for a year, or is this gonna be for 3 years?
3,
This will be for 3 years.
because they started the application process.
This is completely new.
Anew.
So this is
Even
new,
though
they
it was
have another
presented
3 years
before.
to come before us,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Oh, cut it out. We'll put your
Okay.
name on a seat.
Yeah.
So, does someone want to make a motion?
I will move to approve the application of Great Bridge Properties LLC as presented for a special exception pursuant to Article 4, Section 4.2, Schedule 1, permitted uses, and Article 5, Section 5.2, to permit the proposed construction of a multi-use structure with first floor commercial and the first story commercial, 3 stories of residential workforce housing on the property located at 2 Meeting Place Drive, and a special exception from Article 4, Section 4.4, Schedule 3, Note 12, to allow an increased height not to exceed 50 feet.
Seconded.
Okay, I had a question about whether all the units are affordable housing, because I think that the applicant said that 28 units.
That's how many are being proposed.
That's how many are going.
Oh, that is the total, okay. I was reading it as 28 plus 7 plus 13. but
My sense from his
that's
appearance at the podium that the
Yeah.
applicant would like
Would like
to
to
say
say something, yes.
So within the context of the application process and the investors vetting this approval, I want to be careful about the language of workforce housing, because that's sort of like anecdotally referred to as one thing, but it's something different. So if the board is inclined to condition the approval on specifically referencing workforce housing, which I think we've made that representation, I think that is sort of an implicit condition of the approval anyways. But if the board is inclined to do that, maybe we could specifically reference in compliance with New Hampshire State Workforce Housing Statute, which I understand to be a 674-58 et sec, so that everyone knows what we're talking about. We're talking about a proposal and a use that's consistent with the statute.
That is my intent. Repeat that statutory reference for me again.
It's RSA 674-58 et sec, really, because it goes to 659, 674-59, and then 674-60.
Okay.
Okay.
So, good luck.
Okay, do you want to,
I'm just going to, I mean, if I can, I'm just going to amend my previously proposed motion to just, strike workforce housing and replace it with New Hampshire State workforce, housing pursuant to the New Hampshire State Workforce Housing Statute, RSA 674:58 et sec, which is ET space SEQ for our transcription, our minute taker at home.
I will again second the motion.
okay,
Good.
all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, motion passes, you're all set.
Thank you very
Application's
much.
approved, thank you.
We don't want you to come back in 3 years. Excellent.
I knew someone had that statute somewhere. Thanks.
He's got his little book.
Oh, God, I never looked at the minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, Justin.
Looking for my minutes.
Okay.
Which I,
No, I haven't looked at them.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I normally like
Wishing
to.
again.
oh,
I'd like to, but I haven't.
Just leave that there.
Are you leaving? Just leave it on the, just leave it there?
Right there.
Do we have to turn it off?
Yeah, just push the off button.
I think
Okay.
It's still working.
oh, it's almost out of power. Click the off button. There's a stop.
That's what he
Stop
means.
button?
Stop
There we go.
Well, after we're done, though.
after we're done.
You leaving, Doug? No, but and again, I should know her name because I had to ask twice.
Just a minute.
Can you make sure that?
Can you make sure it's still on?
Because the light is out and it says low I think it says low battery.
I think we're good with the TV too, so this is kind of like this is
It's a
really,
backup?
is just a backup in case
Okay.
something goes wrong with the vote line.
Yeah, it's
What'd you do?
no, I did not do that.
Did you break it?
No,
Oh, my.
the light went out and it beeped in the middle of the meeting. Yeah, it might still be recording, it's just, although the light's out.
You've got the TV.
We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good, as long as we can get that up for Joanna.
Okay, here it is.
You got it?
Did you have
Okay,
a
so-
question?
Doug, I was just gonna ask Doug, did you get a copy of the photographs that were submitted?
Yeah,
She had asked that, I guess she only has one copy, so she had asked that we make a copy.
well,
No.
no, actually, we
Make
were going
copies
to
and
make
send them back
copies
to
of
her.
them, keep the copies and send her the originals.
She wants them back.
She wants to make sure she can take him to the planning board, is what I think.
1996, I remember that. Wasn't that like the Mother's Day flood or something?
Oh, I think.
What
it
month?
was before
September?
then.
October?
I But the Great Flood of 96?
No, it was actually,
It was a big,
April 16th.
it was a big flood in the fall of 90. Well, anyway, go ahead. We gotta do minutes.
So her name and address is on the first page, obviously,
So I'll just make sure that we make copies and send them.
and send the originals back.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so the remaining thing for us is the minutes from last week.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick minute to look these over.
Okay, Joanne,
Okay,
it's like that, is it?
yes, it is.
Well, take your time, I'll be right back.
Yeah,
They are spectacular, as is
Yeah.
usual with Joanne. Is that her name, Joanne?
oh, this is,
No.
these are not, yes, it's Joanna.
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 Bartel.
Joanna.
Yeah,
Joanna Bartel.
Bartel.
I couldn't find anything wrong with them.
In line 25, the only thing I would ever question would be that, is that really how he spells his last name? But she tends to look this stuff up.
It was, yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not
but I
sure
would
either.
trust
Well,
that.
she applied the spelling consistently, so she had confidence in it.
Oh, I didn't look at him because I wasn't here. I don't even have to vote on him.
Yeah, I wasn't here either. I didn't plan to vote on this.
I
So three of you, only three of
actually
you.
read
can vote.
them, and I didn't find any problems with them, so.
Okay.
Which, you know, is pretty remarkable.
She does a very good
She's
job.
very good.
Okay, I think I don't see anything that needs correction.
Okay, so
Are we the only?
Rick's
Chris, were
here.
you-
now we need to wait for Rick.
We have to wait for Rick.
Oh, he actually left.
Oh, three can vote.
Okay.
We can
I
vote
don't
on.
know, Chris, were you?
Yeah, I was here.
Oh,
Chris
you
is
were
here.
here.
Kevin and I were not.
Right. So that's three of us.
Vote, we'll lock the door and Rick's stuck in the bathroom.
So poor Rick, hit with a flag
Oh, no.
By you.
by me.
Should we wait? I guess we should. Yeah. Was that a yeah?
This was a tough meeting. You hit Rick with the flag, you guys locked me out of the building.
Right. This is how we get you to, you know.
Actually, I
what we
thought
want.
it was gonna be much worse this evening. I really did. I was.
Yeah.
I was fearful of.
I
You
am
had me frightened from,
We're still on.
always happy to have a large application
Well, the.
dropped out.
And the one that went fairly smoothly.
Mr. Hummel is not happy.
No,
no.
no. But I think it was explained to him exactly that if he can demonstrate that there's a wetland there, then this approval has no impact on that. But there's no approved wetland where he says there is.
And he's back.
Got it? We're just waiting for you,
Is that it?
Yeah, we're making
Yeah.
small talk.
so,
Well, I'm glad I wouldn't want to miss the voting on leaving.
yeah, we know you tried.
I was gonna hold out, but it might have been embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay, were you here last time?
Yeah.
Did you have any corrections to the minutes? Okay. All right, motion to approve?
I will move to
Minutes?
approve the minutes as presented.
I will second that.
All in
No
favor?
changes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.